Imagine reaching into a jar of old pennies, pulling out a coin worth just 1 cent, and discovering that collectors could be willing to pay a fortune for it.
It sounds impossible. It sounds like something that only happens to other people. Yet stories like this continue to fuel one of America's most fascinating treasure hunts. And today, we're talking about a coin that many people have handled without giving it a second glance.
A coin that was produced in enormous numbers. A coin that still turns up in pocket change, coin jars, and forgotten collections across the country.
The 1982 D Lincoln cent. At first glance, it seems ordinary. But what if one tiny detail could transform an everyday penny into a collector's dream? What if a hidden error, a rare variety, or an extraordinary condition could send its value soaring far beyond 1 cent? And what if the coin sitting in your drawer right now is far more important than you realize? Stay with me, because the story of the 1982 D
Lincoln cent is filled with surprises, mysteries, and astonishing discoveries that continue to captivate collectors decades later. The year 1982 was unlike any other year in the history of the Lincoln cent. Something dramatic was happening behind the scenes at the United States Mint. Rising metal costs were creating a problem. For years, Lincoln cents had been struck primarily from copper. But copper prices were climbing, and producing pennies was becoming increasingly expensive. The solution would change the Lincoln cent forever. In 1982, the mint began transitioning from the traditional bronze composition to a new zinc-based composition coated with copper.
That might sound like a minor technical detail. It wasn't. It created one of the most fascinating collecting years ever seen. Suddenly, multiple varieties of 1982 cents existed. Different mint marks. Different compositions. Different date styles. Different weights. And hidden among those variations were coins that
would become the focus of intense collector interest.
Most Americans never noticed. Pennies continued flowing through cash registers, piggy banks, and pockets. Yet collectors were quietly examining every detail. They knew that years of transition often create unexpected treasures. And sometimes, those treasures remain hidden for decades. Think about that for a moment. Millions of people spent these coins without ever looking closely. Millions. How many rare examples slipped through ordinary hands? How many extraordinary discoveries are still waiting to happen? That question keeps collectors searching. And it brings us to one of the most intriguing aspects of the 1982 D Lincoln cent. Errors. The word alone excites coin hunters. Because mistakes are not supposed to happen. Modern minting is designed for precision. Every coin should look exactly like every other coin. But occasionally, something goes wrong. When it does, collectors pay attention. Very close attention. Some 1982 D cents have been found with striking abnormalities that transformed ordinary coins into fascinating collectibles. Off-center strikes. Die cracks. Die chips. Cuds. Misaligned dies. Double-struck examples. Each error tells a story. A story of machinery operating at incredible speeds. A story of split-second imperfections. A story captured forever in metal. And the more dramatic the error, the more interest it often attracts. Imagine discovering a penny where part of the design appears shifted. Or finding one with unusual doubling visible under magnification. Or spotting a striking anomaly that few people have ever seen. That single discovery could completely change how you view a coin that most people ignore. But that's only the beginning. Because condition can be just as important as rarity. Let's talk about a powerful truth that surprises many new collectors. Not all 1982 D Lincoln cents are equal. Far from it. Two coins may have the same date, the same mint mark, the same design. Yet one might be worth only a tiny amount, while another could command extraordinary attention. Why? Condition. The highest grade coins exist in an entirely different world. These are coins with exceptional luster. Minimal imperfections. Sharp details. Outstanding eye appeal.
Coins that somehow survived decades without the wear and damage that affect most circulating examples.
Finding one is like finding a time capsule. A perfect survivor from another era.
And when elite condition combines with collector demand, remarkable things can happen.
Prices can rise dramatically. Competition can intensify. Collectors can spend years searching for a superior example. Now here's where the story becomes even more fascinating.
Many people assume rare coin discoveries only happen in auctions or professional collections. But some of the most exciting finds begin in ordinary places.
Kitchen drawers.
Old jars.
Family. Collections. Inherited boxes. Forgotten albums sitting on shelves for decades. A coin doesn't know where it's located.
A valuable coin can hide anywhere.
That reality fuels the dream. Because every collector understands a simple possibility. The next great discovery could still be waiting. Maybe in a box that hasn't been opened for years.
Maybe in a collection assembled by a parent or grandparent. Maybe among coins that someone considered worthless.
The possibility is real. And that possibility keeps the hunt alive. Now let's address the number that captures attention. The figure that makes people stop scrolling. The figure that sparks curiosity.
Reports and claims surrounding extraordinary examples of rare coins sometimes reach astonishing levels, with discussions of values stretching into the millions of dollars for the most exceptional and unique circumstances. Some enthusiasts point to figures as high as $2.1 million when discussing elite rarities. Extraordinary conditions, or remarkable collector demand.
Whether every claim reflects a typical market reality is another question entirely.
But the existence of such conversations highlights something important.
Collectors are willing to pay tremendous sums for coins that combine rarity, desirability, and uniqueness.
And that is exactly why people continue examining their pennies.
Because nobody wants to overlook something extraordinary.
Imagine discovering that a coin you nearly spent on a cup of coffee contains a feature that separates it from millions of others.
Imagine learning that experts consider it unusual. Imagine watching collector interest grow. That possibility creates excitement unlike almost anything else in the hobby. But here's an important twist. Many valuable discoveries happen because someone looked closer than everyone else. Not because they were lucky.
Because they were observant.
They paid attention. They noticed details others missed. A tiny anomaly.
A subtle difference.
A small clue hiding in plain sight. The greatest treasure hunters often begin with curiosity. And curiosity is free.
The next time you see a 1982 D Lincoln cent, don't rush past it.
Examine it carefully. Look at the surfaces. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Look for anything unusual. Ask questions. Compare examples. Research varieties. Because knowledge can transform an ordinary search into an exciting adventure.
And every great coin story begins with someone taking a closer look. As we move toward the end of this story, consider what makes the 1982 D Lincoln cent so captivating.
It's not just the coin itself.
It's what the coin represents.
Possibility. Discovery. Opportunity.
The idea that hidden treasures can still exist in everyday life. In a world where so many things seem already found, cataloged, and claimed, coins offer something different. They remind us that surprises still happen.
That mysteries still exist. That remarkable discoveries can emerge from ordinary places.
And perhaps that's why the 1982 D Lincoln cent continues to fascinate collectors year after year.
Not because every example is valuable, but because some may hold secrets waiting to be uncovered. The hunt continues. The questions remain. The excitement never truly fades. Somewhere tonight, someone will open an old coin jar. Someone will sort through a forgotten collection.
Someone will discover a penny they haven't looked at in years. And maybe,
just maybe, they'll find something unexpected. Something unusual. Something worth investigating. Because history has a funny way of hiding in plain sight. And sometimes, it hides on a single copper-colored coin. So before you overlook that old 1982 D. Lincoln cent, take another look. Examine every detail. Study every mark. Check every possibility. Because the next coin you inspect could be far more than a penny. It could be a story. It could be a discovery. It could be the beginning of an unforgettable treasure hunt.
And that treasure hunt might already be sitting in your pocket right now.
What if the next Lincoln penny you find is worth more than a luxury mansion? It sounds impossible.
It sounds like one of those stories people tell at coin shows and collector gatherings. But what if I told you that certain Lincoln cents have stunned the collecting world with astonishing values, turning ordinary pocket change into life-changing discoveries? And today, we're talking about one of the most overlooked coins sitting quietly in collections, jars, drawers, and forgotten boxes across America.
The 1979 D. Lincoln cent. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. Nothing flashy. Nothing rare. Nothing that would make the average person stop and take a second look.
But hidden among the billions produced that year are coins that have collectors searching, dealers inspecting, and treasure hunters examining every detail under magnification. And some of those discoveries have led to values that seem almost unbelievable. So before you spend another penny, before you ignore that old coin jar sitting in your house, stay with me until the end.
Because one tiny detail could change everything.
The story begins in 1979.
America was entering a new era. Inflation was making headlines.
Gas prices were climbing.
Technology was advancing. Meanwhile, at the Denver Mint, workers were producing Lincoln cents by the billions.
The goal was simple. Make enough pennies to meet the nation's demand.
Day after day, massive presses struck coin after coin at incredible speeds. Millions became billions. Billions became mountains of copper-colored cents. Most entered circulation and disappeared into everyday commerce. But something interesting happened along the way. Not every coin emerged exactly as intended. Tiny mistakes. Microscopic differences. Production anomalies. And that's where this story starts getting exciting. Because in the world of coin collecting, perfection is common. Imperfection is where fortunes begin. Think about that for a moment. A mistake that should never have happened can sometimes become the very reason a coin becomes valuable. The smaller the mistake, the rarer the mistake, the bigger the potential reward. And that brings us to one of the most fascinating aspects of the 1979 D. Lincoln cent. Hidden errors. The kind most people never notice. The kind that can sit unnoticed for decades. The kind that turn ordinary pennies into extraordinary collectibles. Imagine searching through a pile of coins and discovering something almost nobody else saw. A subtle doubling. An unusual strike. An off-center design. A die crack. A repunched detail. A dramatic minting anomaly. Suddenly, a 1-cent coin becomes something entirely different. Something collectors want. Something collectors compete for. Something collectors pay serious money to own. Now here's where the suspense deepens. Many people assume valuable coins look obviously rare. But the truth is often the opposite. Some of the most desirable discoveries appear ordinary at first glance. The secret is in the details. The smallest details. Details most people never inspect. Details hiding in plain sight. And that's exactly why so many treasures remain undiscovered. For decades, countless 1979 D. Lincoln cents circulated through cash registers, piggy banks, vending machines, and family collections. Most were spent without a second thought. But what if one of those coins contained a rare error? What if someone unknowingly spent a valuable piece of numismatic history? That possibility keeps collectors searching. It keeps them looking through rolls.
It keeps them examining inherited collections.
Because every search carries the same exciting question. What if? What if the next coin is different? What if the next penny is special? What if the next discovery changes everything?
As years passed, the collecting community began paying closer attention to high-grade examples from 1979.
Not just error coins. Not just varieties.
But pristine examples preserved in remarkable condition.
And condition changes everything. Two pennies struck on the same day can have dramatically different values decades later. One enters circulation and becomes worn.
The other remains untouched.
Protected. Preserved. Virtually flawless. The difference can be staggering.
Collectors often compete fiercely for the finest known examples because they represent the very best survivors from a particular year in mint.
And when elite condition coins appear, bidding wars can follow. Prices climb. Interest grows. Competition intensifies.
Suddenly, what began as a simple penny becomes a trophy.
A prize. A centerpiece collection item. Now let's talk about something that fascinates every coin hunter.
The dream sale.
The headline-grabbing number. The story everyone remembers.
Over the years, reports and claims have circulated about exceptionally rare Lincoln cents reaching extraordinary market values under unique circumstances, especially when rarity, demand, condition, and collector competition align perfectly. And that's where figures as high as $2.2 million often enter the conversation.
Think about that.
A coin originally worth 1 cent.
A single cent.
Potentially associated with values that rival luxury homes and successful businesses. That's the kind of possibility that captures imaginations.
That's the reason people start checking jars. That's the reason forgotten collections suddenly become exciting. Because every legendary coin discovery started with someone taking a closer look. But here's the twist.
Most valuable coins are missed because people don't know what they're seeing.
A tiny doubling on lettering. A subtle strike anomaly. An unusual planchet issue.
A rare production error.
To the average person, these details appear insignificant. To experienced collectors, they can mean everything.
And the longer a coin remains undiscovered, the more
mysterious its journey becomes.
Picture a rare 1979 D Lincoln cent quietly passing through thousands of hands over decades. From a grocery store cashier,
to a bank teller, to a collector's child, to a forgotten drawer, to a dusty coin jar. Year after year. Decade after decade. Waiting for someone to notice.
Waiting for someone to recognize what others overlooked.
Waiting for the moment its secret is finally revealed. That possibility is what makes coin collecting so addictive. Every coin tells a story. Every coin carries history. And every coin holds the potential for surprise. Just when you think you've seen everything, another discovery appears. Another rare error surfaces.
Another hidden treasure emerges.
And the hunt begins again. The most successful collectors understand something important. They don't assume. They verify. They inspect. They learn. They study. Because knowledge often separates ordinary finds from extraordinary discoveries. A person who understands minting errors sees opportunities others miss. A person who recognizes rare characteristics can spot value hidden in plain sight.
And that's exactly why stories of remarkable coin finds continue appearing year after year.
Someone looked closer. Someone paid attention. Someone noticed what everyone else ignored. Now imagine opening an old box inherited from a family member.
Inside are rolls of pennies untouched for decades.
Most people would see spare change. A collector sees possibility. Potential. Mystery. Maybe thousands of ordinary coins. Or maybe one extraordinary coin hiding among them. One coin capable of transforming the entire collection. One coin capable of becoming the discovery everyone talks about. And that's why the 1979 D. Lincoln cent remains so intriguing. Not because every example is valuable. Not because every penny is rare. But because the possibility exists. The possibility that an overlooked coin could contain something remarkable. The possibility that a hidden error escaped detection.
The possibility that an exceptional survivor remained preserved against all odds.
And sometimes possibility is enough to spark a nationwide treasure hunt.
As we reach the end of this story, consider the journey of that tiny penny.
Created in Denver. Released into circulation. Passed from hand to hand. Traveling across America for decades. Most people never noticed it. Most people never cared. Yet somewhere out there, a rare example may still be waiting. Waiting in a collection. Waiting in a drawer. Waiting in a coin jar. Waiting for the person curious enough to take a closer look. Maybe that person is you. Maybe the next great discovery isn't locked inside a museum. Maybe it isn't hidden inside a vault.
Maybe it's sitting just a few feet away from where you're watching this video right now.
A penny. 1 cent.
Small enough to fit in your pocket.
Powerful enough to ignite dreams. And valuable enough to make people look twice.
So tonight, before you ignore that pile of old change, take another look.
Examine every date. Check every detail. Study every mint mark. Because history has shown again and again that remarkable treasures often hide in the most ordinary places. And somewhere among millions of Lincoln cents, another surprise may still be waiting to be found. What if the next coin worth a small fortune is already sitting in your pocket right now? Not a gold coin. Not a century-old rarity. Just an ordinary-looking 2007 D. Lincoln cent. Most people would never give it a second glance.
They spend it without thinking.
It disappears into cash registers, coin jars, couch cushions, and forgotten drawers across America. But what if that common penny isn't as ordinary as it seems? What if hidden among billions of Lincoln cents are a handful of extraordinary pieces that collectors search for year after year? And what if one of them is sitting in your home right now?
Today we're diving into the fascinating story of the 2007 D. Lincoln cent, a coin that has surprised collectors, sparked treasure hunts, and inspired countless people to examine every penny that passes through their hands.
Because sometimes the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing payday is a tiny detail almost nobody notices.
The story begins in 2007 at the Denver
Mint.
Millions upon millions of Lincoln cents rolled off the presses that year.
They were produced for circulation, intended to be used in everyday transactions and eventually forgotten. At first glance, there seems to be nothing remarkable about them.
The familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln appears on the front.
The classic Lincoln Memorial design appears on the reverse.
The small D mint mark beneath the date identifies the coin as having been struck in Denver.
Simple. Ordinary. Common. Or so it seemed.
Years later, collectors began noticing something interesting.
Certain examples appeared different. Tiny differences. Microscopic details. The kinds of details most people never see. And that's where the mystery begins. Imagine dumping a jar of pennies onto your kitchen table. Hundreds of coins spill out.
Most are worth exactly 1 cent. But hidden somewhere among them could be a coin worth dramatically more than face value.
The question is simple. Would you recognize it? Many wouldn't.
That's why valuable coins continue to circulate unnoticed every year. One of the biggest attractions surrounding the 2007 D. Lincoln cent involves error coins.
Now here's something many people don't realize.
Collectors often pay substantial premiums for mistakes.
Think about that for a moment. In most industries, mistakes reduce value. In coin collecting, the right mistake can create value. A lot of value. During the minting process, countless steps must occur with incredible precision. Metal blanks must be prepared. Dies must strike correctly. Equipment must function perfectly.
And when something goes wrong, unusual coins can emerge.
Some collectors spend decades searching for these unusual pieces. Why? Because rarity drives demand.
And demand drives value.
A tiny error that escaped the mint decades ago can transform an ordinary coin into a collector's prize. But not all errors are equal. Some are minor. Others are dramatic. And the dramatic ones are where things become truly exciting.
Collectors carefully inspect Lincoln cents for doubled features, off-center strikes, die cracks, die chips, unusual surfaces, misaligned strikes, and other production anomalies.
Most people would never notice these details. Yet experienced collectors can spend hours studying a single coin under magnification. Why? Because one overlooked detail can completely change a coin's story. And sometimes its value.
Now here's where things get even more interesting.
Condition matters. A lot. Two 2007 Lincoln cents can look similar at first glance.
Yet one may be worth a few cents while another could attract intense collector attention.
The difference often comes down to preservation. Coins that escape circulation immediately after leaving the mint can retain remarkable original surfaces. Sharp details. Strong luster. Minimal contact marks. These characteristics can dramatically increase desirability. Think of it this way.
A baseball card that's been protected for years usually commands more attention than one that spent decades folded in a pocket.
Coins follow a similar principle.
The better the condition, the fewer examples exist. And the fewer examples that exist, the more competitive collectors can become.
But here's the twist.
Even high-grade coins are only part of the story.
The real excitement emerges when exceptional condition and unusual characteristics collide. That's when collectors start paying very close attention.
Imagine finding a coin that not only survived in remarkable condition but also displays a rare production anomaly.
Suddenly you're not looking at just another penny. You're looking at a conversation piece. A discovery.
A treasure hiding in plain sight.
And that possibility is exactly what keeps people searching. Every day. Every week. Every year. Coin rolls from banks are opened. Coin jars are examined.
Collections inherited from family members are
inspected.
Because nobody wants to overlook something special.
Now let's talk about the psychological side of this story. Why are people so fascinated by Lincoln cents? The answer goes deeper than money. These coins connect generations. A penny found today may have traveled across America for years.
It may have passed through thousands of hands. It may have been carried by students, workers, soldiers, travelers, and families.
Every coin has a journey. Every coin has a story. And occasionally, one of those stories turns out to be extraordinary. That's what makes coin hunting so addictive. The next discovery could be anywhere. A coffee shop. A grocery store. A gas station. Your own spare change. And here's the part that surprises many newcomers. Some valuable finds happen completely by accident. People cleaning garages discover forgotten coin jars. Families sorting inherited collections uncover hidden treasures. Old piggy banks reveal coins nobody examined for decades. The discoveries aren't always made by experts.
Sometimes they're made by ordinary people who simply took a closer look.
Which raises an intriguing question. How many potentially valuable coins have already passed through your hands? 10? 100? 1,000? We'll probably never know.
But that's exactly why the hunt continues. Now, over the years, stories have circulated about extraordinary coin values reaching astonishing heights.
Whenever collectors hear reports involving six-figure or even million-dollar valuations, excitement spreads quickly. Could a coin really be worth that much? In rare circumstances, exceptional coins have achieved extraordinary auction results.
But those outcomes usually involve a unique combination of rarity, demand, condition, historical significance, and intense competition among collectors.
The important lesson isn't that every 2007 penny is worth a fortune. It isn't. The lesson is that remarkable discoveries often begin with coins most people ignore. And that reality keeps the dream alive. Because every famous coin discovery started the same way. Someone noticed something others missed. Someone paid attention. Someone looked closer.
As we approach the end of this story, consider what makes the 2007 Lincoln cent so fascinating.
It's not just the coin itself.
It's what the coin represents.
Possibility. Opportunity. Curiosity. The idea that extraordinary value can hide inside ordinary objects.
A concept that continues to captivate collectors throughout the United States.
Maybe you'll never find a major rarity.
Maybe your next handful of pennies will contain nothing unusual.
Or maybe tomorrow you'll spot a detail that changes everything. A strange strike. An unusual feature.
A coin preserved far better than expected. The kind of discovery that sends your heart racing.
Because that's the magic of coin collecting. You never know what you'll find until you look. And sometimes the most overlooked coin becomes the most memorable. So before you spend your next Lincoln cent, take a moment. Turn it over. Study the date. Check the mint mark. Examine the details. Look a little closer than everyone else.
Because somewhere out there, an extraordinary coin is still waiting to be discovered.
And the person who finds it could be the one watching this video right now. What if the next coin you spend without a second thought is worth far more than 1 cent? It sounds impossible.
After all, the 2013 Lincoln cent is one of the most modern pennies in circulation. Millions were produced. They still show up in pocket change.
Most people see them every day and never give them a second glance. But what if I told you that some collectors search through thousands of pennies hoping to find just one unusual example? One coin. One mistake. One tiny detail that most people never notice. And that single detail could turn an ordinary penny into a coin collectors desperately want.
Today we're taking a deep dive into the mysterious world of the 2013 Lincoln cent. A coin that many people assume is common, yet one that continues to attract attention from collectors looking for hidden errors, overlooked varieties, and exceptional high-grade examples. Before this story is over, you may find yourself reaching for a jar of pennies, checking your wallet, or searching through that old coffee can full of coins sitting somewhere in your house. Because sometimes the biggest surprises come from the smallest places. The year was 2013. The United States Mint was producing billions of coins for circulation. Pennies rolled out of the presses at incredible speed. Among them were Lincoln cents struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small d mint mark beneath the date. To most people, these coins were ordinary. But coin collectors know something that the average person doesn't. Whenever billions of coins are produced, mistakes can happen.
And when mistakes happen at the mint, collectors pay attention. A tiny misalignment. An unusual strike. An unexpected defect. These imperfections can transform an everyday coin into something far more interesting. And that is where our story begins. Imagine dumping a pile of pennies onto a table. Hundreds of copper-colored coins scatter across the surface. Your eyes move quickly from one date to another. Nothing special. Nothing unusual. Then suddenly something catches your attention. The lettering looks strange. The design appears doubled. The surface doesn't look quite right. Could this be one of the hidden treasures collectors spend years searching for? That question alone has fueled countless coin hunts across America. One of the most talked about possibilities involves doubled die characteristics. Now, before anyone gets too excited, true doubled dies are not common. In fact, they are rare. But when genuine doubling is discovered on a coin, collectors take notice immediately. The reason is simple.
A real doubled die variety originates during the die-making process itself. That means every coin struck from that die carries the same distinctive characteristics. When such varieties are confirmed and documented, demand can rise quickly. But here's where things get interesting. Many people overlook subtle signs because they assume a penny couldn't possibly be valuable. That assumption has caused some remarkable coins to remain hidden for years.
Think about that for a moment. How many pennies have passed through your hands? Hundreds? Thousands? Maybe tens of thousands? Now imagine if just one of them had something unusual that nobody noticed. That possibility is what keeps collectors searching.
And the surprises don't stop there.
Another area collectors examine closely involves off-center strikes.
These occur when the coin blank isn't perfectly positioned during the striking process.
The result can be dramatic.
Part of the design may be missing while the remaining details appear shifted toward one side.
The more dramatic the error, the more attention it tends to attract. Some off-center coins become centerpieces of entire collections.
And every year, new discoveries continue to emerge from circulation. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the 2013 D. Lincoln cent isn't a spectacular error.
It's condition. Yes, condition. Because this is where ordinary coins can become extraordinary. Most 2013 D cents entered circulation almost immediately.
They bounced from cash registers to pockets. They rattled around in cup holders.
They were tossed into jars and forgotten. Every scratch, every nick, every mark reduced their quality. Yet somewhere among the billions struck, a tiny number survived in exceptional condition. Pristine. Sharp. Nearly flawless. Collectors refer to these as high-grade examples.
And in the coin market, grade can change everything.
A coin worth 1 cent in worn condition might be worth dramatically more if it survives in elite collector quality. That reality shocks many people. They assume age creates value. But often, preservation is just as important. Sometimes more important.
Picture two identical 2013 D. Lincoln cents.
One spent years circulating through the economy.
The other remained untouched in an original roll.
Same date. Same mint mark. Same design.
Yet their market values could be vastly different because of condition alone. That's the kind of twist many newcomers never see coming.
Now here's a question. What if the rarest treasure isn't an obvious error? What if it's simply the best preserved example? Suddenly the hunt
becomes much more interesting. Because now every penny deserves a closer look.
And collectors know another secret. Modern coins are often ignored. People assume only old coins matter.
But history has repeatedly shown that modern issues can become highly desirable when exceptional quality, scarcity, and collector demand intersect.
The market has surprised people before. And it will likely surprise people again. That's why experienced collectors never dismiss a coin based solely on its age.
They examine it carefully.
They look for strike quality. They inspect the surfaces.
They search for unusual characteristics. Because hidden opportunities often appear where few people are looking. The 2013 D. Lincoln cent fits perfectly into that idea.
Millions exist.
Yet few people truly examine them. Which means discoveries remain possible.
Now imagine this scenario.
A collector purchases an old roll of pennies.
Nothing remarkable is expected.
Just another routine search.
The roll is opened. The coins spill out. One by one they are inspected.
Then suddenly a coin appears different.
Sharper. Cleaner. More impressive. Under magnification, details stand out with remarkable clarity. The surfaces glow. The strike is exceptional. What looked ordinary moments earlier suddenly becomes exciting. That transformation is one of the reasons coin collecting remains so addictive. Every search carries possibility. Every coin tells a story. Every discovery creates a moment of suspense. And no one knows exactly what might appear next. As our story approaches its conclusion, there's one final lesson worth remembering. The most successful collectors are not necessarily the luckiest. They are often the most observant. They slow down. They pay attention. They notice details others miss. While most people see a penny, they see potential. While most people see spare change, they see history. While most people walk past opportunity, they stop and investigate. And sometimes the difference changes everything. The 2013 D Lincoln cent may look ordinary at first glance. In most cases, it is. But hidden among countless examples could be coins with unusual errors, exceptional preservation, or characteristics that make collectors take notice. That's why the hunt continues. That's why coin rolls are searched every day. That's why collectors never stop looking. Because somewhere out there, another discovery is waiting. Maybe it's sitting in a forgotten drawer. Maybe it's hiding in a piggy bank. Maybe it's mixed into a handful of change right now. And maybe, just maybe, the next coin you examine will reveal something nobody else noticed. It starts with something most people would never think twice about. A penny. A simple copper-colored coin that has passed through countless hands, cash registers, and jars sitting on kitchen shelves across America. But what if one of those ordinary pennies was not ordinary at all? What if hidden inside your pocket change is a 1981 Lincoln cent with no mint mark that could turn an everyday moment into a life-changing discovery? Before you dismiss this as just another coin story, there's something you need to understand. Some of the biggest numismatic surprises in history didn't come from gold coins or ancient treasures. They came from pennies. The smallest denomination. The most ignored piece of money in circulation. And the 1981 Lincoln cent is one of those coins that continues to spark debate, confusion, and hope among collectors. Because while most of them are worth exactly 1 cent, a few rare variations, minting quirks, and high-grade specimens have created a storm of rumors online. Some claim extraordinary values. Others insist it's all hype. But the truth sits somewhere far more interesting than either extreme. So the question is simple. Why are people still searching through jars of 1981 pennies more than 4 decades later? And more importantly, what are they hoping to find? To understand that, we need to go back to the beginning. In 1981, the U.S. Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents. Coins were struck in Philadelphia and Denver, and for Philadelphia issues, there was no mint mark on the coin at all. That means if you find a 1981 penny without a letter under the date, it doesn't automatically mean rarity. In fact, it's exactly what you would expect from Philadelphia production. But here's where things start to get interesting. Because within those massive production numbers, something unexpected can still happen. Errors, variations, and subtle differences that most people never notice. And those small details are where collectors begin to pay attention. Imagine holding a coin that looks normal at first glance. The date reads 1981. Lincoln's profile is centered. The color seems standard copper. But under magnification, something is slightly off. The strike is doubled. The lettering appears shadowed. Or the surface shows unusual texture, as if the metal itself didn't form correctly under pressure. This is where the story shifts from ordinary to intriguing. One of the most discussed possibilities among collectors is the double die obverse. This happens when the coin die itself is misaligned during the minting process, creating a doubled effect on the lettering or date. On a 1981 cent, a strong enough doubling can turn a common coin into something highly sought after in error coin circles. Then there are off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned. Instead of a perfectly centered Lincoln portrait, you might see part of the design shifted, leaving a blank crescent on one side. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more attention it draws from collectors. And still, there's more. Clipped planchets,
where part of the coin's edge appears cut off as if it were bitten. Lamination errors, where the metal surface peels or separates. Strike-through errors, where foreign material leaves an impression on the coin during striking. Each one tells a story of imperfection at the mint. A moment where machinery, pressure, and timing did not align perfectly.
But here's where the excitement often takes a dramatic turn.
Because online, you may come across claims suggesting that rare 1981 Lincoln cents have sold for enormous sums, even reaching figures in the millions for top condition examples. These claims spread quickly, especially on social media and video platforms, feeding the idea that a single penny could instantly change someone's life.
So what's real, and what's not?
The truth is more grounded, but still fascinating. In the world of verified coin collecting and auction records, a standard 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln cent is extremely common. Most are worth face value unless they are in exceptional uncirculated condition or display a verified mint error. Even then, typical values usually range from a few cents to several dollars, and in rare error cases or top-grade certified specimens, they can reach higher collectible premiums.
But not millions. And yet, the excitement around these coins persists. Why? Because every collector knows one important rule. Rarity is not always about age. It's about condition, error, and demand.
And sometimes, it only takes one unusual specimen to capture attention and fuel a global rumor mill.
So why do people still search for the 1981 no-mint mark cent as if it might be hidden treasure?
Because hope is powerful. And because mistakes at the mint are real.
Now imagine this.
You're sorting through an old coin jar.
Pennies from decades of pocket change. Nothing special at first glance.
Then suddenly, one coin feels different. It looks sharper.
Cleaner. Almost untouched by time.
The surface shines with an unusual luster.
The details of Lincoln's face appear unusually crisp. You pause. Could this be something better than average? This is where grading becomes critical.
Coin grading services evaluate condition on a scale that can dramatically change perceived value.
A coin in average circulated condition may be worth only face value.
But the same coin, in near-perfect mint state condition, can attract collector interest simply because so few survived untouched. And that is where imagination begins to run wild. Because when people hear high grade, they start thinking high value. But the real market is much more disciplined.
Condition alone is not enough. There must also be demand, rarity, or a recognized error variety. Still, there is something undeniably exciting about the possibility.
And that excitement is what keeps collectors searching.
So let's bring clarity back into focus.
If you are holding a 1981 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, here is what you are really looking for.
First, check for doubling in the lettering or date. Use a magnifier if possible. Even slight separation in the text can be significant if it matches known error patterns. Second, examine the strike quality. Is the design off-center? Is part of the coin missing or weakly struck? Third, look at the surface. Any unusual texture, cracks, or lines could indicate minting anomalies. And finally, consider the overall condition. A sharp, well-preserved coin that looks almost new after decades may still carry collector appeal even without dramatic errors. But here is the most important truth that experienced collectors understand. Most value is not found in hype. It is found in verification. Coins become valuable when experts confirm what they are, not what rumors suggest they might be.
Yet even with that reality in mind, the search continues. Every year, people discover overlooked coins in old collections, estate boxes, and forgotten jars. Some find minor errors worth a few dollars. Others find beautifully preserved specimens that collectors admire. And once in a while, someone finds something truly unusual that sends them down the path of professional grading and auction evaluation. That possibility is what keeps this hobby alive. Because unlike many things in life, coin collecting holds a unique promise. You don't need wealth to begin. You don't need special access. You only need curiosity and patience. And maybe, just maybe, that next handful of pennies you've been ignoring for years is hiding something you've never noticed before.
So as we reach the end of this journey, here is the real question you should be asking yourself. Not whether a 1981 penny is rare, but whether you have ever truly looked at the coins already in your possession. Because history has proven something again and again. Extraordinary discoveries are often hiding in ordinary places. In the quiet world of pocket change, where most people barely glance at a penny before spending it, there exists a story that refuses to stay quiet. A story about a coin so ordinary in appearance that it blends into millions of others, yet so mysterious in online discussions that some believe it could change a life overnight. The 1990 Lincoln cent with no mint mark has become one of those coins surrounded by whispers, theories, and viral claims that seem almost too dramatic to believe. But what if the truth is even more interesting than the hype? What if the real treasure is not just in the coin itself but in what it reveals about hidden errors, overlooked details, and the psychology of collectors chasing fortune? Imagine holding a small copper-colored cent in your hand, dated 1990, the same kind that has passed through vending machines, cash registers, and forgotten jars in thousands of homes across America. At first glance, nothing seems special. No shine of gold, no ancient history, no obvious rarity. Just a penny. But then you notice something unusual. No mint mark. And suddenly, the question appears that has sparked countless searches online and fueled endless curiosity. Could this tiny detail mean something extraordinary, or is it just another misunderstood piece of pocket change being pulled into internet mythology? Before we go deeper, there is something important to understand. The 1990 Lincoln cent was primarily struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally does not carry a mint mark for that period. So in most cases, a no-mint mark 1990 penny is completely normal. But here is where the story takes a turn. Because in the world of coin collecting, normal is never the end of the story. It is only the beginning. Collectors do not chase ordinary coins. They chase mistakes. And the 1990 penny has become famous not because of its standard production, but because of the rare errors that can occur during minting. Some are subtle. Some are dramatic. And a few are so unusual that they have sparked viral claims of extreme value, including exaggerated online stories suggesting figures in the millions. But what is actually real, and what is simply internet fiction designed to grab attention? Let's slow down for a moment and step inside the minting process itself. Every Lincoln cent begins as a blank planchet, a small metal disc prepared to become currency. It is then struck under massive pressure by engraved dies that imprint the design. In theory, everything is precise, controlled, repeatable. But in reality, even the most advanced systems are not perfect. And when pressure, timing, or alignment goes even slightly wrong, something rare is born. One of the most talked about possibilities in coins like the 1990 cent is the double die error. This happens when the die itself is misaligned during creation, causing a doubled image on letters or numbers. Imagine looking at the word liberty and noticing it seems slightly shadowed, as if the letters are echoing themselves. To an untrained eye, it might look like wear. But to a collector, it could signal something far more interesting. Then there are off-center strikes, where the design lands slightly away from the center of the coin. These can make a penny look almost incomplete, as if it was struck in a hurry and never corrected. Some are minor and barely noticeable. Others are dramatic enough that part of the design is missing entirely. And in the world of error coins, the more dramatic the mistake, the more attention it attracts. Another possibility is the struck-through error, where debris, grease, or foreign material interferes with the strike. This can leave ghost-like marks or missing details on the coin's surface. These errors often go unnoticed for years because they do not always look dramatic at first glance. But under magnification, they reveal stories of production line chaos hidden in plain sight. So where does the idea of massive value come from? Why do some videos and posts online claim that a 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln cent could be worth thousands or even millions? The answer lies in a mix of misunderstanding, rare hype cases, and the powerful appeal of discovery culture. People love the idea that something ordinary in their pocket could secretly be extraordinary. And in rare cases, error coins do sell for impressive amounts. But the truth is more grounded than the headlines suggest. Most 1990 Lincoln cents are worth face value. 1 cent.
Even in excellent condition, they typically only reach small collectible premiums. However, certain verified error varieties can bring stronger interest from collectors. A well-defined double die, a dramatic off-center strike, or a major minting anomaly could potentially reach tens or occasionally hundreds of dollars depending on condition and demand.
But there is no confirmed auction record supporting multi-million-dollar sales for a 1990 cent. That is where fiction begins to replace fact. Yet the fascination continues.
Why? Because every collector knows one powerful truth.
Value is not always about what is common.
It is about what is rare, what is certified, and what is proven. And that is where most people make their biggest mistake.
They assume every unusual-looking penny is valuable. But without verification, grading, and documented auction history, appearance alone is never enough.
Still, the hunt is what keeps people searching. Imagine sitting at your kitchen table, slowly sorting through a jar of coins collected over decades.
Most are dull, ordinary, forgettable. Then suddenly you pause.
A 1990 penny catches your eye.
Something looks slightly off.
The lettering seems uneven.
The strike feels different.
Your curiosity rises. Could this be one of those rare errors, or is it just another trick of lighting and wear?
This is the moment every collector lives for. The moment of possibility. Because in coin hunting, the real reward is not always finding a life-changing fortune.
It is the thrill of uncertainty, the chance that something overlooked might be something extraordinary. There are documented cases where collectors have discovered valuable error coins in everyday circulation. Wheat pennies worth hundreds.
Misprinted quarters. Off-center nickels saved from loose change.
These discoveries fuel the belief that treasure is still out there hiding in plain sight.
And that belief keeps the hobby alive across generations.
But here is the twist most people do not expect. The real value of coins like the 1990 Lincoln cent is not just in rarity. It is in education.
Learning how to identify errors trains the eye.
It builds patience.
It turns ordinary moments into investigations.
And it transforms a simple penny into a lesson in history, manufacturing, and chance.
So if you ever come across a 1990 no-mint mark cent, do not rush past it.
Look closer.
Examine the edges.
Check the lettering. Compare both sides under good light.
Ask yourself what others might have missed.
Because while most will be ordinary, the few that are not can teach you far more than their face value suggests.
And this is where the story reaches its peak.
Not in fantasy claims of millions.
Not in viral exaggerations.
But in the real, grounded excitement of discovery.
Because the truth is, you do not need $1 million coin to experience $1 million feeling.
Sometimes, all it takes is one small detail on a 1-cent piece to remind you that opportunity often hides where nobody bothers to look.
What if a coin sitting in your pocket right now, a simple modern penny from 2020, could quietly carry a hidden error so rare that collectors argue over its true value, and in some online stories, even outrageous claims of millions of dollars are thrown around? Sounds impossible for something that was minted just a few years ago, right?
But stay with this for a moment, because this is exactly how some of the biggest coin hunting rumors begin, with a coin everyone ignores.
A coin you've probably held without a second thought. The 2020 D Mint Mark Lincoln cent. Ordinary at first glance. Modern. Mass-produced.
Worth just 1 cent.
Or is it?
Because in the world of coin collecting, the most dangerous mistake you can make is assuming that new means common.
And common means worthless.
And today, we're going deeper into a story that blends truth, hype, and hidden opportunity inside one of the newest Lincoln pennies ever made.
But before you dismiss it, ask yourself this. How many valuable mistakes get thrown into circulation without anyone noticing? How many people actually check their change closely anymore? And what if just one overlooked detail could turn a single cent into something collectors fight over? Let's start where most people never think to look.
The United States Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents in 2020, and the Denver Mint, marked with a small d, produced a massive share of them.
These coins were designed for speed, efficiency, and circulation, not rarity. So at face value, there is nothing special about it.
But here's where things start to shift. Because within high volume production, even in modern times, mistakes still happen. And when they do, they create what collectors call mint errors.
Small mistakes, big consequences. A tiny misalignment in a die, a foreign object on the striking surface, a planchet that was slightly off, a strike that hit at the wrong angle or pressure.
Most of these errors are caught,
but not all of them.
And the ones that escape into circulation, those are the ones that start rumors, spark bidding wars, and send people digging through jars of pennies like their life depends on it.
Now here comes the first reality check.
Despite viral claims online suggesting modern pennies like the 2020 Lincoln cent can reach values in the millions, there is no verified record of any 2020 penny selling anywhere near that level.
Not even close. But that does not mean there is nothing valuable here. In fact, that is where the real story begins.
Because while millions is fiction, hundreds and sometimes even thousands of dollars for rare, dramatic mint errors is very real.
And the difference between a 1-cent coin and a $1,000 coin is often something you can see with your own eyes if you know what to look for.
Let's slow this down and step into the hidden world of errors that could exist on a 2020 Lincoln cent.
First, imagine a doubled die error.
This is when the design on the coin is struck twice in a slightly misaligned position during the die creation process. On Lincoln cents, this can show up in the lettering, especially in words like Liberty or In God We Trust.
Under normal lighting, you might miss it completely.
But tilt it just right, and the letters begin to look shadowed, almost like they are vibrating.
Collectors go quiet when they find this.
Because strong doubled die examples can turn a normal penny into a highly sought-after variety.
Now imagine something even more dramatic. A broad strike error.
This happens when the coin is struck without its retaining collar. Instead of forming a perfect round edge, the coin spreads slightly outward, almost like it has been stretched.
It looks wrong in your hand. Too wide.
Too soft around the edges. Almost like it escaped the mint mid-transformation. To the untrained eye, it looks damaged. To a collector, it looks like opportunity. Then there are off-center strikes.
These are some of the most visually striking errors you can find.
The design is not centered. Part of Lincoln's portrait might be missing entirely, while the opposite side shows extra blank space. The more off-center it is, the more dramatic it becomes. And yes, dramatic errors often carry stronger collector demand. But here's where things get even more interesting. Because modern minting technology is supposed to prevent most of these mistakes. So when they do happen on a coin as recent as 2020, collectors take notice. Now let's talk about something subtle but powerful. Die chips and die breaks. Over time, the metal dies used to strike coins begin to wear down. Small cracks or chips form on the surface. When these damaged dies strike coins, they leave behind raised blobs or lines on the finished penny.
Sometimes on Lincoln's face. Sometimes in the lettering.
At first glance, it looks like dirt or damage. But under magnification, it tells a different story. It tells you that the coin came from a late-stage die, often associated with collectible varieties. And here's the twist most people never consider. Not every error is rare. But the combination of condition, visibility, and demand is what creates value. A small die chip on a dirty, heavily circulated penny might be worth nothing more than face value.
But a dramatic, clean, well-struck error coin in uncirculated condition? That is where collectors start paying attention.
Now pause for a moment and think. About how many 2020 pennies have already passed through hands, wallets, vending machines, and parking lots? Millions upon millions. And yet only a tiny fraction have ever been closely examined. That means somewhere out there, error coins are still hiding in plain sight.
Waiting. Now let's address the elephant in the room again.
The internet is full of sensational claims about modern pennies being worth millions of dollars.
It spreads fast because it sounds exciting. A penny turning into a fortune is a powerful idea.
But real coin markets do not operate on hype alone. They operate on verified sales, grading, rarity, and collector demand. And for the 2020 Lincoln cent, even the most extreme known errors do not approach millionaire valuations.
However, there is something even more important than chasing fantasy numbers. Because real opportunity in coin collecting is not about becoming a millionaire overnight.
It is about recognizing value that others overlook.
A coin worth $20 found in a jar of change is still a win.
A coin worth $200 from a vending machine return is still a win. And once in a while, a coin worth far more than that enters the story.
Now imagine this scenario. You find a 2020 penny. At first glance it looks normal. But you notice something odd. The strike seems off. The lettering looks doubled. The edge feels unusual.
The surface shows raised imperfections. You take a closer look.
You compare it online.
Suddenly, your curiosity turns into urgency.
Because now you realize something most people never do. You might be holding a mint error.
And that is when collectors start doing what they do best.
They verify. They grade. They evaluate.
And depending on condition and rarity, they assign real market value.
Sometimes modest. Sometimes surprising. But always based on actual demand, not fantasy headlines. So what should you actually be looking for in a 2020 Lincoln cent? Look for doubling in the text.
Look for unusual thickness or distortion.
Look for missing design elements or weak strikes.
Look for off-center images or misaligned features. And most importantly, look at the coin as if it might be something more than just 1 cent.
Because mindset changes everything in coin hunting. Most people see change. Collectors see possibilities.
And here is the final turn in this story. The real value of modern coins is not just in rare errors.
It is in awareness.
Because the moment you start checking your coins, even casually, you move from observer to hunter.
From spender to seeker.
And while the idea of a 2020 penny making someone instantly wealthy belongs more to internet mythology than real market history, the idea of finding valuable mint errors in everyday change is completely real.
It has happened before.
It continues to happen.
And it will happen again. The only question is whether you will be the one who notices it.
In a quiet drawer, inside an old coin jar, or maybe tucked away in a forgotten pocket change container, there could be something that looks completely ordinary at first glance. A small copper-colored cent dated 2006 with a simple D-mint mark stamped just beneath the year.
Nothing flashy. Nothing unusual.
The kind of coin most people would spend without a second thought.
But what if that single penny was not ordinary at all?
What if hidden in plain sight is a coin that collectors have argued over, searched for, and in some corners of the internet, even claimed could be worth life-changing money? Stay with this, because the story of the 2006 Lincoln cent is not what most people expect. And by the end, you may never look at loose change the same way again. The year 2006 was not a special year in American currency history on the surface. Millions upon millions of Lincoln cents were struck at the Denver Mint. They entered circulation quietly, blending into everyday commerce across the United States. Gas stations, grocery stores, vending machines, coffee counters, all handling these coins without a second thought. But coin history has a strange pattern.
Sometimes it is not about the year itself. It is about what went wrong during production.
It is about the small mistakes that were never supposed to escape the mint. And it is about the handful of coins that somehow did.
This is where the mystery begins.
Collectors have long studied the 2006 Lincoln cent, searching for anomalies. And while most examples are completely normal, a few variations and reported minting irregularities have kept the coin in discussion among hobbyists and error coin hunters.
One of the most talked about possibilities involves strike anomalies. Coins that show unusual weakness in detail. Areas where Lincoln's portrait appears slightly doubled or distorted.
In some cases, collectors report what they believe are dye deterioration errors, where the minting dye itself begins to wear down and produces a softer, almost blurred design.
At first, this might sound minor.
But in the world of coin collecting, small details can create massive value differences.
Because rarity is everything. And here is where things start to get interesting.
Online forums and speculative listings have occasionally exaggerated the value of extreme mint error coins, sometimes attaching astronomical figures to rare or unusual pieces. In those discussions, some claims surrounding rare Lincoln cents, including modern Denver Mint issues like the 2060 cent, have reached sensational numbers. You may even find viral posts suggesting values in the millions, with figures like $2.8 million being repeated across social media and videos.
But here is the critical truth that experienced numismatists agree on.
There is no verified auction record of a 2060 Lincoln cent selling anywhere near those figures.
Not even close.
So why does the story persist?
Because hope is powerful.
And because the idea of turning 1 cent into millions is one of the most compelling dreams in collecting.
Still, that does not mean the coin is worthless. Far from it. Let's go deeper.
Some 2060 Lincoln cents do carry collectible value when they exhibit genuine mint errors. These can include off-center strikes, where the design is misaligned and part of the coin is missing. Or die cracks, where raised lines appear on the surface like tiny lightning fractures frozen in metal. There are also instances of plating issues, where the copper coating appears uneven or missing in small patches. Individually, these may sound like flaws. But in the collecting world, flaws are exactly what create uniqueness. And uniqueness creates demand.
Now imagine holding a coin that no one else has. Not because it is ancient. Not because it is gold or silver.
But because a tiny mistake occurred during production and escaped quality control.
That is the foundation of every modern error coin story.
But here comes the twist most people miss. The real value of a coin like the 2060 Lincoln cent is not usually found in dramatic headline numbers.
It is found in subtle scarcity.
A coin might be worth a few cents in normal condition, yet a few dollars, or in rare cases significantly more, if a dramatic mint error is verified and graded by professional services.
Condition matters deeply.
A scratched, circulated penny loses most collector appeal. But a pristine, uncirculated example with a certified mint error becomes a different story entirely.
And that is where collectors begin to pay attention.
Because grading companies act as gatekeepers of authenticity.
Without certification, claims remain just claims. With certification, value becomes real and measurable.
Still, the question remains. Could there be something extraordinary hiding in the 2060 Lincoln cent population that has not yet been widely discovered?
To answer that, we have to understand how modern minting works.
By 2006, the United States Mint had highly advanced production systems.
Errors were far less common than in earlier decades. Automated inspection systems reduced the chances of flawed coins entering circulation.
That makes true dramatic errors significantly rarer in modern pennies compared to older wheat cents or mid-century issues.
But rarity does not mean impossibility.
There have been documented cases in modern coinage where unexpected mint errors slipped through. Double strikes, off-metal strikes, and experimental planchet issues have all surfaced in various years. When they do, collectors take notice immediately. And this is where excitement builds again. Because every coin roll sitting in storage, every jar of forgotten change, every inherited collection could potentially contain something overlooked.
Now picture this. You are going through a handful of pennies. Most are ordinary. 2005, 2006, 2007. Nothing unusual.
Then one coin feels slightly different.
The strike looks odd. The surface reflects light in an unusual way. Maybe the details are shifted slightly to one side. At that moment, curiosity takes over. Is it damage or is it an error? That is the question that separates a regular penny from a collectible one. And here is the suspenseful reality. Most people never check. Most people spend them instantly. Which means the rare ones, the truly unusual ones, often go unnoticed.
This is why coin collectors remain obsessed with modern mint years like 2006. Not because every coin is valuable, but because the possibility exists that something rare could still be hiding in circulation.
And possibility is what drives the hunt. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood aspects of coin value: internet listings.
Over the years, various coins have been listed online with extremely high asking prices.
Sometimes these listings are speculative.
Sometimes they are misunderstandings. And sometimes they are marketing tactics designed to attract attention.
A listing does not equal a sale.
A claim does not equal verified market value. This is especially important when discussing sensational figures attached to modern pennies. While stories may circulate suggesting extreme valuations reaching into the millions, actual auction records for Lincoln cents, especially from the early 2000s, do not support those numbers. However, and this is important, there are documented cases of rare mint error coins across U.S. history selling for significant amounts when they are truly unique, historically important, and professionally authenticated.
So the real takeaway is not fantasy. It is awareness.
Because value in coin collecting is built on three pillars:
rarity, condition, and demand. When all three align, surprising results can happen. Now imagine the final moment of discovery. You take a 2006 Lincoln cent to a professional grading service.
Weeks pass. The coin is examined under high magnification. Experts analyze the strike, the metal composition, the die characteristics.
Then the results come back. Not just a normal cent. Not just pocket change. But a recognized mint error with verified authenticity.
Even if the value is not millions, the transformation is real. A coin once worth 1 cent could now be worth significantly more to the right collector. And that shift is what keeps people searching.
Because the dream is not just about money. It is about discovery. It is about the idea that something ordinary in your possession might not be ordinary at all.
So where does that leave the 2006 Lincoln cent?
It leaves it in a fascinating space between everyday currency and collector curiosity. Most are common. Many are overlooked.
But a few, under the right conditions, with the right errors, and the right certification, become part of the collecting conversation.
And that is the real story. Not guaranteed riches. Not instant millions. But possibility.
And possibility is powerful enough to make people stop, look again, and question what they thought they already knew about the coins in their hands. Because somewhere, in circulation right now, there are still coins waiting to be examined.
Still coins waiting to be noticed.
Still coins that might carry small but meaningful secrets from the minting process. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you hear the sound of pennies dropping into your hand, you will take a second look before you spend them. Because sometimes, the most ordinary coin in your pocket is only one discovery away from becoming the most interesting thing you own. In the quiet world of pocket change, there exists a date that collectors often overlook, a coin that millions have handled without a second thought, yet whispers of hidden value continue to circulate across coin forums, auctions, and late-night conversations among treasure hunters.
The 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln cent.
A coin so ordinary at first glance that most people would never imagine it could be the center of intense debate, speculation, and in some corners of the collecting world, stories of life-changing fortune.
But what if the ordinary is only an illusion?
What if the coin sitting in your jar right now is not just copper in history, but a locked door waiting for the right key? Today we are going deep into the mystery of the 1984 Lincoln cent, the hidden errors that make collectors stop in their tracks, and the rumors that have pushed some claims into the realm of millions. Before you dismiss it, consider this. Almost every major coin discovery in history started with someone thinking it was just another penny. And that is exactly where our story begins. In 1984, the United States Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents. The Philadelphia Mint produced coins without a mint mark, making them visually indistinguishable from common circulation coins.
Most of them entered everyday life immediately. They were spent, saved, lost, or forgotten. To the average eye, they remain one of the most common pennies in American pockets.
But within that massive production run, something always happens in minting.
Machines shift. Dies wear down. Metal flows unevenly.
And sometimes, just sometimes, a small number of coins leave the mint with errors so subtle that they go unnoticed for decades. That is where the story starts to shift from ordinary to extraordinary. Collectors began noticing anomalies in certain 1984 pennies. Some displayed doubling in the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust. Others showed slight misalignment in the strike, creating off-center impressions that suggest mechanical instability during production.
There are even reports of unusual surface textures that hint at struck through grease or debris during minting.
At first, these were dismissed as minor imperfections. But in the world of numismatics, imperfections are often where value is born. Now imagine holding a coin that looks identical to millions of others, but under magnification reveals a doubled image in the date. Not dramatic at first glance, but enough to signal that something unusual happened during production. That moment is where curiosity turns into obsession. Because collectors know one truth very well. The rarer the error, the higher the potential value. And this is where the legend of the 1984 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent begins to grow beyond simple collecting. Across online discussions and auction rumors, there are claims of exceptionally rare 1984 error cents reaching astonishing valuations. Some listings, often debated and not fully verified, suggest that ultra-rare varieties or dramatic mint errors associated with this year have been valued in the hundreds of thousands. And in the most extreme and highly controversial claims circulating in collector communities, figures as high as millions of dollars are mentioned. But here is where reality and rumor begin to separate. Most professional numismatists agree that standard 1984 no-mint Mark Lincoln cents are extremely common. Even those in pristine condition typically hold only modest value. However, the world of error coins operates differently. When a coin exhibits a rare combination of minting mistakes, provenance, and perfect preservation, the rules change. The question is not whether the 1984 penny is valuable in general. The question is whether a specific, extremely rare error version could exist in private hands, unrecognized, waiting for discovery. And that possibility is what keeps collectors searching. Let us explore the types of errors that fuel this fascination. One of the most discussed is the doubled die variety. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin has a slight misalignment during its creation, causing a doubled image to appear on the finished coin. On a 1984 cent, this might show on the lettering or date, often visible only under magnification. While many doubled dies are minor, certain strong examples in other years have sold for significant amounts, and collectors speculate similar rare occurrences may exist for 1984. Another intriguing category is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is not properly aligned during the striking process. If the error is dramatic and the coin still retains full design elements, collectors often assign higher value. Combine that with excellent condition and rarity, and the price can rise sharply. Then there are struck-through errors, where foreign material such as grease or debris interferes with the strike. These can create ghost-like features or missing details. While often overlooked, unusual and visually striking examples can draw strong collector interest. But here is where the story takes a turn. Why would a coin as common as the 1984 cent ever be linked to stories of extreme value reaching into millions? The answer lies not in the average coin, but in the extreme outliers that sometimes emerge in the collecting world. Over time, rare mint state specimens combined with dramatic and unique error combinations have occasionally created auction surprises that defy expectations. When such stories circulate, they often grow with each retelling, especially online, where verified details and speculation blend together. This is how legends form. A single exceptional coin, possibly unique in its characteristics, gets discussed. Then the numbers evolve. Then assumptions grow. Eventually, the story becomes larger than the verified record. And yet, even experts admit something important. The minting process is not perfect. It never has been. And whenever humans and machines interact at massive scale, anomalies are inevitable. So the real question becomes this. Could there be a 1984 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent with a combination of extreme rarity,
perfect preservation, and dramatic error characteristics still undiscovered in circulation or private collections. No one can say with absolute certainty that it is impossible.
That uncertainty is what fuels the hunt.
Imagine sitting at your kitchen table late at night.
A small jar of pennies in front of you. Coins that have passed through countless hands.
Most people would see change for coffee or parking meters.
But you look closer.
One by one. Date after date. And then you pause. A familiar number. But now you know what to look for. Doubling in the text.
Unusual sharpness or distortion.
Misalignment. Strange surface patterns. Tiny clues that most people would miss entirely. This is where opportunity lives, hidden in plain sight. And here is the part most people never consider. Even if a coin is not worth millions, certain rare error varieties can still command strong prices from dedicated collectors. Some can reach hundreds or even thousands depending on condition and rarity. The key is knowledge. Knowing what separates ordinary from exceptional.
Because in the world of coin collecting, information is often more valuable than the coin itself.
As we move toward the final realization of this story, one truth becomes unavoidable. The 1984 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent is not valuable because of what it is.
It becomes valuable because of what it could be under rare circumstances. And those circumstances are what keep collectors alert, curious, and constantly checking their change.
Every coin tells a story. Most are common stories.
But every so often, a coin appears that rewrites expectations. A small object that challenges assumptions. A piece of history that refuses to be ordinary. What if I told you that a single penny from your pocket change could trigger a life-changing discovery but also a wave of confusion, hype, and misinformation that has fooled thousands of collectors across the United States? And what if that penny was the 1979 D-Mint Mark Lincoln cent? A coin so ordinary at first glance that most people would never give it a second look, yet so controversial online that some claims surrounding it have reached unbelievable extremes, including stories of sales supposedly climbing into the millions of dollars. But here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because once you strip away the hype and look at what experts actually know, the truth becomes far more interesting and far more realistic than the fantasy. And that truth might still change the way you look at every penny in your house. Stay with this story, because by the end you will know exactly what makes this coin important, what errors actually matter, and how a simple pocket find could still turn into a serious collector payoff.
Let's begin where most stories end, in complete ordinary silence.
A coin jar sitting on a kitchen counter untouched for years, filled with pennies that most people assume are worth exactly 1 cent each. But hidden inside that jar could be a 1979 D-Mint Mark Lincoln cent that tells a different story. A story of production quirks, minting variations, and subtle errors that escape the untrained eye. And in the world of coin collecting, sometimes it is not the rarest date that matters, but the rarest mistake. Now imagine pulling one coin from that jar and noticing something slightly off.
Maybe the strike looks weaker than usual. Maybe the design seems slightly misaligned.
Or maybe the surface shows unusual doubling that makes the letters appear shadowed or distorted.
At first you ignore it. But then a question forms.
What if this is not just wear and tear?
What if this is something the mint did not intend? That single question is where every valuable coin story begins.
The 1979 D-Mint Mark Lincoln cent was produced in massive numbers at the Denver Mint during a period when United States coin production was transitioning into more modern high-speed methods. That means millions upon millions were struck quickly under heavy demand. And whenever production speeds increase, something always slips through. That is where errors are born. But before we go further, there is something you need to understand clearly. Despite viral internet claims, there is no verified auction record showing a 1979 D Lincoln cent selling for millions of dollars.
Not 2 million, not 1 million, and not even close.
Those stories spread fast online because they are exciting, because they sound like hidden treasure, and because people want to believe the coin in their pocket could instantly change their life.
But real numismatics works differently. Real value comes from rarity, condition, and confirmed mint errors, not rumors.
So why then does this coin still get attention?
From collectors.
Because within the 1979 D Lincoln Cent series there are genuine and fascinating error varieties that can carry real value in the right condition.
Let's talk about the first type of hidden anomaly.
Doubled die characteristics. This happens when the die used to strike the coin has a misalignment during its creation process, causing elements of the design to appear doubled. On some 1979 cents, collectors have reported slight doubling in lettering or design details, though most examples are minor and require magnification to confirm. Now imagine finding one where the doubling is strong, clear, and visible without tools.
Suddenly you are no longer holding just a penny. You are holding a mint error that collectors actively search for.
And that is where excitement begins to build.
But we are not done yet.
Because another category of error exists that often creates confusion among new collectors.
Off-center strikes. This happens when the coin blank is not perfectly aligned during the striking process.
The result is a coin where part of the design appears shifted, leaving empty space on one side. The more dramatic the off-center strike, the more collectible it becomes. But here is the twist: most off-center coins are discarded by the public because they look like damage rather than rarity.
And that means valuable examples often go unnoticed for years. Still think your penny jar is ordinary? Let's go deeper. Another known category involves die cracks and die breaks.
Over time, minting dies wear down under extreme pressure, causing cracks to form. When these cracked dies strike coins, they can leave raised lines or unusual textures across the surface.
To an untrained eye, it looks like damage.
To a collector, it can signal a late-stage die state, which sometimes increases desirability depending on rarity and presentation.
Now pause for a moment.
Because everything we have discussed so far still does not approach the wild internet claim of multi-million-dollar value.
So,
where did that number even come from? In most cases, it originates from viral videos, blogs, or social posts that confuse rare coin concepts with fictional valuations or mix different coin types into a single exaggerated story.
Experts and auction records do not support those figures for the 1979 D Lincoln Cent.
Even high-grade examples in pristine condition typically trade in the low to moderate range unless paired with a significant verified error.
So why does this coin still hold attention? Because condition changes everything.
A standard circulated 1979 D cent is common and worth face value in most cases. But a perfectly preserved mint state example graded at the highest levels can still attract strong collector interest. Now imagine combining that condition with a verified mint error. That is where real spikes in value can happen. Not millions, but sometimes hundreds, or in rare cases a few $1,000s, depending on demand and certification.
And in the world of coin collecting, demand can shift quickly. One discovery, one auction, one certified rarity,
and suddenly a coin that sat unnoticed for decades becomes the center of attention. But here is where the story becomes even more compelling. Because the real treasure hunt is not about guaranteed riches.
It is about awareness. Most people have no idea what to look for. They see a penny and move on. Collectors see possibilities.
So what should you actually check if you find a 1979 D Lincoln Cent?
First, examine the mint mark under magnification. Look for signs of doubling or unusual spacing.
Then inspect the lettering on the obverse carefully, especially the word Liberty and the date.
Next, rotate the coin under light and look for anomalies in the surface texture. And finally, check the strike alignment for any off-center characteristics. Most coins will show nothing unusual. But the few that do can tell a very different story.
And that is where patience becomes powerful.
Because every rare coin ever discovered
was once just another piece of change ignored in someone's hand.
Now let's return to the most important question of all. Could a 1979 D Lincoln Cent ever truly make someone wealthy? The honest answer is no, not in the extreme viral sense that spreads online.
But could it surprise you? Could it deliver unexpected collector value? Could it be worth more than a single cent?
Absolutely yes. And that is what keeps collectors searching every single day. Because the real thrill is not in fantasy numbers. It is in discovery. It is in holding something ordinary and realizing it might be slightly extraordinary. And that possibility is what turns pocket change into a lifelong hobby for millions of Americans. What if the most valuable coin in your pocket right now is something you've been ignoring for decades? A simple penny. A 1993 Lincoln cent with a tiny D mint mark. Something you may have seen 1,000 times without ever truly looking at it. But here's where the story takes a turn you were never meant to expect. Because in the world of coin collecting, the ordinary is often just a disguise. And sometimes the most overlooked coins carry secrets that can change everything. There are claims circulating online that certain rare versions of the 1993 D Lincoln cent have reached astonishing values in extraordinary condition, even being described in viral stories as selling for figures as high as multi-million-dollar levels. But before you dismiss this or believe it completely, you need to understand something important. The truth is far more fascinating than the rumor. Because while no standard 1993 D penny has verified auction records anywhere near those extreme numbers, certain error. Varieties and high-grade specimens have sparked intense collector demand, heated debates, and prices that most people would never associate with a single cent coin. And that is where this story truly begins. Not with fantasy, but with the hidden reality of what makes a coin valuable in the first place. Stay with this, because by the end of this video, you will never look at your spare change the same way again. Picture this: a jar of coins sitting in a kitchen drawer. Pennies collected over years without thought. Heads and tails mixing together like nothing important. And somewhere in that pile could be a 1993 D Lincoln cent that looks completely normal. But is anything but normal. Because value in coin collecting is not about age alone. It is about mistakes, rarity, and conditions so perfect that time itself seems to have skipped over it. The 1993 D Lincoln cent was produced in massive numbers at the Denver Mint. Hundreds of millions struck for everyday use. Most entered circulation, were spent, forgotten, and damaged beyond attention. So why would anyone care about it today? That is the question that separates ordinary pocket change from collector obsession. Because within those massive production runs, something rare can happen. A mistake so small it is almost invisible. A shift in metal. A doubling of detail. A misaligned strike. A die that cracked under pressure. Or a coin that somehow escaped the mint in near perfect condition. And when that happens, everything changes. Collectors begin searching. Experts begin examining. And suddenly a coin that once bought a piece of candy becomes a headline in the world of rare currency. Now let's slow down and look deeper. The 1993 D Lincoln cent, in its normal form, is not rare. But coins are not judged only by type. They are judged by variety. And variety is where the story becomes interesting. One of the most talked about possibilities in coins like this is the presence of mint errors. These are not damage from circulation. They are mistakes made during production. And some of them are subtle enough to escape notice for years. Imagine a coin struck slightly off-center. The design shifted just enough that Lincoln's face appears slightly misaligned. To most people, it looks like nothing. To a collector, it could signal rarity. Or consider a doubled die effect, where elements of the design appear faintly duplicated. Letters that seem shadowed. Numbers that look slightly thick or distorted. These are not dramatic at first glance. But under magnification, they tell a different story. A story of a die that moved when it should not have. A moment in the minting process where precision failed. And a coin was born different from the rest. Now here is where suspense builds. Because most people assume valuable coins are obvious. Shiny. Old. Different color. Clearly unusual. But the truth is the opposite. The most valuable errors are often the ones that look almost normal. And that is what makes the hunt so powerful. Because right now, somewhere in the United States, there are people still unknowingly holding coins like this. In coffee cans. in old cash registers, in forgotten piggy banks. And they have no idea. But before you start imagining instant wealth, there is another layer you must understand. Condition. In coin grading, condition is everything. A coin that looks brand new after decades can be worth dramatically more than one that is scratched, worn, or corroded.
And this is where the idea of extreme value often gets exaggerated online. You may see claims that a 1993 D Lincoln cent sold for millions of dollars. Stories spread across social media. Videos repeating the same shocking number. But when experts trace these claims, something important is revealed. There is no confirmed auction record of a 1993 D Lincoln cent selling anywhere near those extreme multi-million-dollar figures. However, that does not mean the coin is meaningless. Because high-grade examples, especially those graded at top mint state levels, with strong strikes and flawless surfaces, can still command attention from serious collectors. And certain verified error coins across similar modern Lincoln cents have sold for impressive amounts when rarity and condition align perfectly. So the real lesson is not the fantasy number. It is the principle behind it. Rarity plus condition plus demand equals value. And that formula has created fortunes in the coin world more than once. Now let's go deeper into the kinds of hidden errors that make collectors stop and stare. One possibility is die deterioration doubling. This happens when a die wears down and begins to produce slightly distorted details. Letters may appear thick. Edges may blur. The design loses sharpness in unusual ways. Another is a struck-through error. This occurs when debris gets between the coin and the die during striking. The result can be a faint texture or unusual mark embedded into the surface. Then there are off-center strikes, where the coin is not perfectly aligned. During minting, these can sometimes show blank areas or shifted images. Each of these errors tells a story of imperfection in a system designed to be perfect. And that is exactly why collectors pay attention. Because perfection is common in mass production. But imperfection is rare. Now imagine holding a 1993 D Lincoln cent in your hand. You turn it slowly under light. You notice something subtle. Maybe the lettering feels slightly bold. Maybe the surface looks different than others in your pile. At first you ignore it. But something makes you look again. That moment. That hesitation. That curiosity. That is how discoveries begin. Most valuable coins are not found in auctions first. They are found in everyday places by people who simply decided to look closer. And that brings us to the most powerful part of this story. The mindset shift. Because whether or not you ever find a rare 1993 D error coin, the real opportunity is learning how to see differently. To stop treating pennies as worthless and start treating them as potential history. Every coin has a journey. From mint to hand. From hand to circulation. From circulation to forgotten storage. And in that journey, anything unusual becomes a marker of rarity. Now here is where everything comes together. If you were to find a 1993 D Lincoln cent in exceptional condition, with a verified mint error and strong visual appeal, it could absolutely attract collector interest. Not because of hype, but because collectors actively search for these anomalies. However, the idea of guaranteed million-dollar sales is where reality must step in. Extreme valuations often come from misunderstanding, exaggeration, or confusion with entirely different coins or unique auction situations involving multiple pieces or rare historic errors. The true market is more grounded, but still full of opportunity. And this is what makes coin collecting so addictive. Because every coin you hold carries a question. Is this ordinary? Or is this overlooked? History. And that question alone has changed lives. So now, as we reach the final moment of this story, imagine yourself going back to that jar of coins. The one sitting quietly in your home. Unnoticed. Unsorted. Unexplored.
You pick up a penny. A 1993 D Lincoln cent. At first it looks like nothing special. But now you know better. You know what to look for. You know what mistakes matter. You understand condition in a way most people never do. And suddenly, that simple coin is no longer just change. It is a possibility. Because in the world of coins, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is often just a second look. And maybe, just maybe, that second look is all it takes to find something everyone else missed. Stop what you are doing for a moment, because the coin you might have ignored for years could be hiding a story most collectors never hear about. A simple 1-cent piece, dated 1983, no mint mark, sitting in a jar, a drawer, or even in your pocket change right now. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And that is exactly why so many people miss what could be one of the most misunderstood Lincoln cents ever discussed online. But here is where things take a turn you were not expecting. For years, rumors have spread across videos, forums, and social media claiming that a 1983 no-mint mark Lincoln cent could be worth thousands, even millions of dollars, with some dramatic stories pushing alleged values as high as $2.1 million in top condition. That number sounds life-changing. It sounds unbelievable. And it is exactly the kind of claim that makes people rush to check every penny they own. But before you assume you are sitting on a fortune, there is something important you need to understand. The truth about the 1983 Lincoln cent is far more interesting, far more realistic, and in some cases even more surprising than the myths surrounding it. Because while there is no verified record of a standard 1983 penny selling anywhere near millions of dollars, there are genuine rare errors from this year that collectors absolutely do pay serious money for. And some of them can still change the way you look at your spare change forever. So the real question is not whether every 1983 penny is worth millions. The real question is this: what exactly makes certain 1983 cents special enough that collectors are willing to pay hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars for them, while others are worth only 1 cent? To understand that, we need to go back to a critical moment in United States coin history. The early 1980s were a turning point for the Lincoln cent. Rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to change the composition of pennies. By 1982, the penny had already transitioned from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. That change continued into 1983, making those coins part of a new era in modern coinage. And here is where confusion begins. Many people assume older automatically means rare. Many also assume that no mint mark equals something special. But in 1983, no mint mark simply means the coin was minted in Philadelphia. It is normal. It is expected. In fact, millions upon millions of 1983 Philadelphia cents were produced and released into circulation. So why do stories of extreme value keep circulating? Because hidden within massive production numbers, something fascinating occasionally happens. Errors. And errors are where ordinary coins transform into collector treasures. Imagine a coin struck slightly off-center, where part of the design is missing and another part is stretched. Imagine a coin where the design appears doubled, almost like a shadow behind the letters. Imagine a penny struck on the wrong type of metal planchet, creating a composition mismatch that should never have left the mint. These are not fantasies. These are real minting mistakes that collectors actively search for. Now focus on the 1983 cent specifically. One of the most talked about varieties is the 1983 doubled die obverse. In certain examples, the lettering on Liberty or In God We Trust may show visible doubling under magnification. This is not dramatic movie-style doubling. It is subtle. But to a trained eye, it is enough to separate a common penny from a collectible error coin. Depending on condition, these can sell from modest amounts into the hundreds or occasionally more if the strike and preservation are exceptional. But that is only the beginning. Another fascinating error tied to this year involves planchet mistakes. While 1983 cents were supposed to be made on zinc cores with copper plating, extremely rare transitional or leftover planchet anomalies can occur. Some collectors have reported unusual color or weight variations that suggest improper metal composition. These types of errors are far less common than people think,
and when authenticated, they can reach significantly higher values due to their scarcity.
Still, we have to separate excitement from reality.
There is no verified, credible auction record of a standard 1983 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent selling for anything close to millions of dollars. Claims of $2.1 million sales are not supported by recognized numismatic auction houses or grading service records.
Those numbers belong more to internet exaggeration than documented coin history.
But do not lose interest yet.
Because the real story is not about unrealistic headlines.
It is about the possibility of finding something valuable in a place most people never think to look. Let's talk about one of the most dramatic types of mint error that can occur.
Off-center strikes.
Picture a penny where the design is pushed dramatically to one side, leaving a large blank crescent of empty metal.
In extreme cases, these can be highly collectible.
The more off-center the strike, as long as part of the date remains visible, the more desirable it can become. A 1983 cent with a strong off-center strike and clear date can attract serious collector attention.
Then there are broad strikes.
Coins that were struck without the retaining collar, causing them to spread out wider than normal. These coins often look odd in the hand, almost like they have been melted or stretched. But they are completely genuine mint errors, and collectors love them for their unusual appearance.
Now imagine combining rarity, condition, and error type.
That is where values begin to rise. Not into fantasy millions, but into real-world collector territory that can still feel surprising when you first hear it.
And here is the part that most people miss. Condition is everything.
A 1983 cent that has been sitting in circulation for decades will usually show wear, scratches, and dull surfaces. But a coin that was preserved in mint state condition, never handled roughly, never exposed to damage, can be dramatically more appealing to collectors. When that high-grade condition is combined with a verified mint error, that is when competitive bidding begins.
Now pause for a second and think about this. How many pennies have you handled in your lifetime without ever looking closely at them? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many of them did you ever actually examine under proper light or magnification? That is the hidden opportunity. Not that every coin is valuable,
but that most people never check carefully enough to know what they are holding.
Let's bring this into sharper focus. A normal 1983 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent is extremely common.
In circulated condition, it is worth face value. Even in uncirculated condition, it might only be worth a small premium depending on demand.
But a 1983 cent with a verified major error can break that pattern completely. Collectors are not paying for the date alone. They are paying for rarity, preservation, and uniqueness. So what should you actually be looking for? Start with the surface. Look for unusual doubling in the lettering. Check Liberty and In God We Trust closely. Look at the date itself.
If something appears slightly shifted or shadowed, it could be worth a second look.
Next, check the shape of the coin. Is it perfectly round, or does it appear slightly expanded or uneven? That could suggest a striking error. Then examine the color and weight.
A coin that looks noticeably different from standard copper-plated zinc cents may deserve further investigation.
And finally, always remember one critical step. Verification matters.
Even if you believe you have found something unusual, professional grading services are what determine real market value.
Without authentication, even a rare-looking coin remains uncertain in the eyes of serious collectors. Now let's return to the bigger picture. Why do stories of millions of dollars even exist around coins like this? Because the idea of hidden wealth is powerful. The thought that something so small, so ordinary, could quietly carry life-changing value is deeply compelling. And in a world where most things feel predictable, coin collecting keeps a sense of mystery alive. But true collectors know something important. Real value is not found in exaggeration.
It is found in knowledge. And knowledge tells us this clearly.
The 1983 no-mint Mark Lincoln cent is not $1 million coin in its standard form.
But it is a year filled with transitional history, minting changes, and the occasional rare error that can turn an ordinary penny into a genuine collectible.
So here is the final moment to think about.
Right now, somewhere in your home, there may be coins that you have never truly examined. Coins that pass through countless hands before reaching you. Coins that might carry tiny imperfections invisible at first glance, but meaningful enough to collectors who know exactly what to look for.
And that is where the real opportunity lies. Not in myths. Not in viral numbers. But in careful observation, patience, and curiosity. Because sometimes, the difference between 1 cent and something far more valuable is not luck. It is simply taking a closer look. In 1991, something unusual slipped through the U.S. Mint's production lines. A coin so ordinary at first glance that millions of people still overlook it every single day. It is the 1991 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, a small copper-colored penny that most would dismiss without a second thought. But hidden inside this everyday coin is a world of mystery, rare errors, and surprising collector demand that continues to spark debates, discoveries, and even life-changing finds. And here's the question that changes everything: what if one of these pennies is already sitting in your pocket, your change jar, or tucked away in an old drawer right now? Because while most 1991 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, a small number carry hidden anomalies that collectors actively search for. And in rare cases, those mistakes have turned ordinary coins into pieces worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Not millions as internet rumors sometimes claim, but still enough to make anyone stop and take a second look. So let's step into the story behind this overlooked coin and uncover why it continues to capture attention decades later. It begins with a simple idea. In 1991, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents to keep up with everyday circulation. Coins were struck quickly, efficiently, and under intense production schedules. At the Philadelphia Mint, coins were supposed to carry no mint mark at all, while Denver coins carried a small d, and San Francisco coins carried an s. That system seems simple, until something goes wrong in the production process. And when it does, that's where the story becomes interesting. Because in the world of coin collecting, mistakes are not worthless. They are the opposite. Mistakes are where value is born. Now imagine a coin being struck under pressure, at high speed, thousands per minute. Dies wear down. Metal shifts. Machines misalign. And sometimes, just sometimes, something unusual slips through unnoticed. A weak strike. A doubled image. A misaligned design. Or even missing details that should not be missing at all. That is where the 1991 no mint mark Lincoln cent becomes fascinating. At first glance, it looks completely normal. Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front. The Lincoln Memorial on the back. The familiar copper tone. Nothing special. Nothing rare. Nothing that screams value. But collectors know better. Because value is not always visible to the untrained eye. Here is where things start to get interesting. One of the most searched varieties is the 1991 Lincoln cent struck with subtle errors. These are not obvious mistakes. They are hidden. And they often require magnification or expert inspection to detect. One of the most talked about possibilities is the doubled die obverse. This happens when the die used to strike the coin imprints the design twice, slightly off alignment. The result can be faint doubling in the lettering, the date, or Lincoln's facial features. To most people, it looks like wear. To collectors, it can be a signal of rarity. But here's the twist: not every doubling is valuable. Machine doubling, which is common, can look similar but carries little to no premium. This is where many people get excited too early and end up disappointed. So the real question becomes, how do you tell the difference? That uncertainty is exactly what makes this coin so intriguing. Now let's go deeper. Another error that occasionally appears in 1991 Lincoln cents is off-center striking. This happens when the blank planchet is not properly aligned in the press. Instead of a perfectly centered design, the image shifts to one side. The more dramatic the shift, the more collectible the coin becomes. A slight off-center strike might only add a few dollars in value. But a major misalignment, especially if the date is still visible, can attract serious attention from collectors. And then there are clipped planchets. These occur when the blank metal sheet is cut incorrectly before being struck into a coin.
The result is a penny that looks like a small piece has been bitten off. It is strange, it is unexpected, and it is exactly the kind of imperfection collectors love.
But the story doesn't stop there.
Some 1991 pennies show die cracks, where the minting die itself begins to fracture over time. These cracks transfer onto the coin, creating raised lines that can look like random scratches across the surface.
To some, it looks like damage.
To collectors, it can be a fingerprint of the minting process itself. And then there are the most subtle of all, repunched mint marks. Even though Philadelphia pennies technically carry no mint mark, confusion sometimes arises when dies are reused or improperly prepared. In other cases across the same era, repunched mint marks from Denver or San Francisco coins can sometimes be mistaken in circulation discussions, adding to the mystery and misinformation surrounding pennies from this period. So now you have a coin that appears simple, but contains multiple layers of possible variation, error, and intrigue. But here is where most people get it wrong.
They hear stories online.
They see exaggerated claims.
They imagine that every old penny could be worth thousands or even millions. And suddenly, reality gets blurred with fantasy.
The truth is more grounded, but still exciting. Most 1991 Lincoln cents are common.
Mass-produced.
Worth face value.
But a small fraction, those with genuine mint errors or exceptional preservation, can sell for meaningful premiums in the collector market. Condition matters. Rarity matters. And authenticity matters more than anything else.
A perfect, high-grade example with a verified mint error can attract strong collector interest. But the idea of every coin reaching extreme valuations is not supported by real market data.
Still, the emotional appeal remains powerful.
Because every collector knows this one truth: treasure does not always look like treasure.
It looks like pocket change. Now imagine this scenario.
You're sorting through an old jar of coins.
Pennies from years ago. Dusty, forgotten, mixed with modern change. Most people would rush through it. But you slow down. You start paying attention. The dates. The details. The tiny differences that most people ignore. And then you see it. A common date. But something feels slightly off. Maybe the lettering looks faintly doubled. Maybe the strike seems uneven. Maybe the surface has unusual characteristics that don't match normal circulation wear. In that moment, curiosity takes over. You stop. You look closer. You wonder if this is just another penny, or something more. That is the exact moment where collectors are born.
Not when they find value, but when they start looking for it.
And here's the reality that most people never realize. Coins like the 1991 Lincoln cent are not rare because of their date.
They become rare because of what happened during production. And those moments of imperfection are unpredictable.
No one can plan them. No one can replicate them. They exist purely by accident. That is why they matter. Because rarity created by accident is often more fascinating than rarity created by design. Now let's talk about what collectors actually look for.
They examine the surface under magnification.
They check for doubling in the date and lettering. They inspect the rim for irregular strikes. They look for unusual coloration that might suggest planchet issues.
They weigh the coin to detect metal inconsistencies.
Every detail becomes a clue.
And sometimes, after all that inspection, the result is still just a normal penny.
But occasionally, something stands out. Something that doesn't belong. Something that tells a different story. And that is when a coin transforms from common currency into collectible history.
The real excitement behind the 1991 no mint mark Lincoln cent is not just its value. It is the possibility. The idea that something so small, so overlooked, could still hold a surprise waiting to be discovered decades later.
That possibility is what keeps collectors searching. And here's the final truth that brings everything together.
You don't need a rare coin already in your hand to start paying attention.
You only need awareness. Because most valuable discoveries in coin collecting don't happen in auctions or museums.
They happen at kitchen tables,
in piggy banks, in old jars, in the places where everyday money gets forgotten.